Thank you. I am Jonan, and I work at New Relic on the Ruby Agent team. And one time I gave a tour to some Portland Code School students, and I started running my mouth, as you do, about salary negotiation. And it's a dangerous thing, as it turns out, because when you do that, then people will make you come and talk to them like you're an authority on such things. So this is your disclaimer. I have no idea what I'm doing. I am dog at keyboard when it comes to everything in life, but I have done this a couple of times with some relative success, and I certainly know that you should do it, so I'm going to try and explain how best to go about it. I'm on Twitter, and that's how you spell my name. You can find me on the internet. And this is Rainbow Dash, my favorite My Little Pony. She doesn't really have any relevance to salary negotiation. So the first thing that I want you to know about salary negotiation as developers, now that you're finishing, a lot of people have doubts about whether or not they're going to be employable or whether or not they're going to be valuable to their employer, how much they're going to make. It doesn't sound like a real thing that there is 0.67% unemployment in software, right? Like that doesn't sound like a reasonable thing, right? Of the people who are, now that's a made up number, but it's of the people who basically don't want to have jobs, right? Or who want to have jobs and don't, right? Very, very few people out there. Like there are a lot of my peers who are fun employed because they made a bunch of money and now are in Thailand for a long time. But the reality is that if you have any programming skill at all, these companies are desperate for you because the market is starved right now. So, which is part of why programs like Portland's Code School make so much sense. And it doesn't sound like a thing that can happen, but trust me, they want you. So, I want to point out also that you probably don't know what you're worth to a company. Having now programmed for how many months have you guys been here? 5? Wait, 3?
Almost 4.
Almost 4 months. So in 4 months, you know enough to generate in value for your company roughly twice your salary. Whatever they pay you, you're making them twice that, or they probably wouldn't be paying you that, right? That is the nature of profit. You make the company more than you cost them, or you wouldn't be there, I promise, okay? These are people who make money for a living. So they go and they choose other people to make them money for a living because it saves them time. You're making them money. They're literally in the business of extracting value from developers. So don't have any doubts that they're getting the better end of this deal. And when you're negotiating your salary, you're just asking for a little bigger nibble on the carrot, okay? That's a perfectly reasonable thing to ask. So the company has a responsibility to their shareholders. If they're not a public company, they may still have people that they're responsible to, or themselves, to save money, right? They need to spend as little as possible all the time. When in a startup scenario, you're often looking at, we have 8 months of runway. As to say, 8 months from now, we will spend our last dollar and be out of business unless we are profitable, right? They are going to try and shave as much off of your salary as they possibly can, and it's your job to push back a little, okay? If they thought that you would take $10 a year, they would offer you $7, expecting you to negotiate, okay? Be ready to bump. They're aiming for the lowest possible numbers that I want to make. They want you. By the time that they have made an offer to you, they're already invested, right? You will probably have been there for several interviews. They've had a manager and or a recruiter involved. They've spent a number of hours looking for you and looking for a lot of other candidates, right? If they're making an offer to you, you're probably the 1 in 5 people that they've actually chosen, that they want to work with. So they've spent 5 times as much time as they've spent on you in manager salary just to get you to consider an offer from them. You think that they're going to balk at a bump of $15,000 for your salary and then just quit, just like walk out the door, right? It's a very common fear. It feels like an unreasonable thing to ask someone for $15,000, right? Has anybody in here ever sold cars? I sold cars for a little while, and I had to ask people for $40,000 at a time. And when you ask enough strangers in a day for $40,000, then 15 is like nothing, right? It's like you're just spanging on the street. I just need 15 grand for some lunch, man. So I want you to just realize that by the time you get to the offer stage, there is exactly 0% chance that they're going to walk away, right? Unless you're a total ass to them, and don't be. That's not hard. But situations arise around this because money is an uncomfortable topic in American society. We don't like to talk about how much we make. It's all secret. I also want to note that only really serves your employer if none of you know what each other make. But because we don't want to talk about it, we end up in situations where we're uncomfortable or we're nervous and we make rash decisions. We say things like, no, you won't meet me on my offer or halfway, then I am not going to talk to you anymore, right? But really, they're not bad guys, right? They're in it trying to make a good deal that makes sense for the company, and they want you to work with them. They've chosen you, and you've chosen them. So you just need to come to a number that is going to allow you to walk in that door being happy with what you're making and being ready to sit down and pay attention to your job, right? A week later, you don't want to feel cheated. And you will feel cheated after my presentation if you don't negotiate at all. So, this is the first question that they're going to ask you, basically. How much are you making currently? What have you, and now this is a different situation because many of you haven't had software roles before. But if people ask you how much you're making from a software job, the answer is no. I am not at liberty to disclose that. I have an agreement with my former employer that I wouldn't discuss the salary that they offered me. I can tell you what I'd like to be making. If you're ready to talk about numbers, if now's the time, then I'd be happy to tell you generally what I would like. But the minute that you give them the first number, then they dominate the conversation, right? This is negotiations 101. When you are arguing with someone about how much you're going to pay for an iPad on Craigslist, use the same approach, right? Like the number where they actually want to be, that's a poor example because the number is literally on Craigslist. They've already given you the number. But when you're negotiating with people, you want to tell them what you want and shut up. Don't say anything else, just wait. Because the first person who speaks in that interaction is probably going to be the loser, okay? Not loser like we win and trump our employers, right? But like you get what you deserve. So they will say a lot of things during negotiation like you are being offered what is reasonable for your skill set and experience. And an excellent counter to that is I am an above average developer for my skill set and experience. I would like you to know that I learn very quickly and I work very hard, and you're going to be surprised when I get in there how much I can do for your company, right? But don't settle for the excuses that they give you. We work very hard to make sure that everyone is paid adequately in our company, and so we have, salary levels that we try to stay within BS. If they want to hire you, they will pay you to come and work with you, right? And if they don't, then that's okay too. I promise you will find jobs, all right? You're awesome, all of you. I can't stress this enough that you need to speak with confidence. They expect you to speak with confidence. You're talking about yourself and your skills in a way that can be uncomfortable. But this is a general principle of interviewing, that you need to speak about yourself with absolute confidence. Know your skills. Don't stretch your skills, right? We're not asking you to lie or deceive, but if you know how to type some Ruby codes, say, I know how to type some Ruby codes, right? Or some JavaScript. Or I am a wizard with the CSS. They'll like that. Engineers have no idea how CSS works. They can't figure it out. Okay? So, when you're representing your opinions in normal society, there's this tendency to step away, right? You try to speak about yourself objectively and say, well, I think maybe I could type some Ruby codes. You can, okay? So just be honest about your opinions. Not too awesome. You stand on the shoulders of giants. Act like it. There are many, many, many people who came before you. Somebody came up with HTTP, right? Realize that you're in an industry with some really brilliant people, and be willing to accept the fact that there are things that you don't know. So when you're talking to your employer, I do this with most of the people that I go to work for. I say, these are the pieces out of these pieces that I want, and where these pieces are inadequate for this job, I want you to help me fill in the blanks. I want to work with you so that I learn to become a tool that's effective for your business. Because I want to help this company grow. I'm committed to the vision. But I can't promise that I know everything that is ever known about the internet, right? I can promise that I will try to learn. That's all they're really asking for. But if you go in there acting like you know, you may end up in a position where you were expected to. So be humble about it. And show respect for your peers. When you've worked with somebody in the past that you didn't get along with, or you had a conflict of interest or a personality clash, keep it to yourself. Your future employer does not want to think of you as someone who is going to disrupt the team in that way, right? There are plenty of ways to handle these things professionally and as adults, right? We all have problems with each other. They come along. But if I am interviewing a developer and they're talking about that dumb jerk that they used to work with who typed such dumb codes and they always had to fix them, then what I'm thinking is like, maybe you were the dumb jerk, and right? There's no reason for that. We can all be friends and get along. Friendship is magic. Right? See, I brought it back to the ponies. You thought I was going to just leave Rainbow Dash up there for no reason. So the offer, be gracious. They are offering you a lot of money. They are going to ask you first how much you make, right? I consider that to be between myself and my employer. I will extend you that courtesy as well. When our relationship comes to a close someday, as long as I'm under your employ, I will not disclose your salary. And then you put yourself in a position where you can tell your next employer the same thing and you're not lying. Because you did just enter into an agreement with your future manager. They didn't ask you to, but you did, right? So now you're under a strict gag order not to disclose your salary to any employer ever, because Jonan said so, all right? They will offer you some amount of salary probably and some options. Has anybody ever had options or any stock grant as part of a company? Yeah? So they're basically lottery tickets, right? The options that they're going to offer you are fund money for now, right? They're getting better at this sort of thing. There aren't very many situations like you have at Google where the cook becomes a billionaire, right? Like that's not what they're offering you. What they're offering you is a sense of ownership in what you're building. And they are asking you to buy in. They're saying, rather than pay you this much more in salary because we're a startup, we have these pretend lottery tickets, and they mean if the company's successful, then you were successful, right? And they come in a couple of different flavors. You have like a dinner money, and then you have car money, and then you have house money, and then you have life money. And you can buy a new one of those with each of the pots, right? Buy a new life money is exceedingly rare. If you're not probably the first or second engineering hire at a startup company, that's not your life. And that's okay, right? Again, we're talking about money that is added on in addition to your salary. But don't buy into the idea that I will pay you 30% less because I gave you so many options. Look at all of this pretend paper I have over here. When they offer you options, make sure that you ask how much they're worth. They are willing and able to disclose all of this information. Right? If they don't have the answers, I'm sure they'll be able to get them for you. So if they say we're going to give you 5,000 options, then you say, how much would those options be worth if I cashed out today? I mean, if you're really curious, you can ask about like vesting schedules and how many shares are outstanding and all of the complicated things that you will come to know because you're going to be working in software. But the best answer is just how many dollars do those turn into today if the company sells, right? And a lot of times the answer is zero. When a company has an exit clause in your contract that says your options can be repurchased by the company when you exit, then they would be taken back for exactly the price that they were offered to you at that very moment, and no value increase and no money for you. Right? But at least they'll have an answer for it. So you need some time after they make an offer. Get off the phone before you jump up and down and scream. It's a very exciting thing. Someone is going to pay you money to push buttons on your little box, right? Awesome. But don't get caught up in the moment and don't accept an offer ever, right? Don't really even imply that you're going to accept an offer. Get off the phone. Go take a nap. Sleep on it, and then sleep some more on it. The idea being that this is a really big choice for you. When you get into a company, you may get a 3% yearly increase, a cost of hire increase. They call that like, how much do we have to pay Jonan so he won't quit right now? Okay, next month, how much do we have to pay Jonan so he still won't quit, right? And they're just stringing you along a little bit. Because they've already got the hook in, right? It's a terribly painful thing to change jobs. So they don't have to give you that much. But when you change jobs in software, you can expect about a 20% increase from your previous salary. Especially if you ask for it. In a way that you just say, this is what I would like to have. And you're not at like $350,000 or something ridiculous. So you have a choice. Let them know that you're weighing your options. Even if you don't have a choice, you have the choice to get other choices, right? This is also not a lie, but this is a thing that you definitely want to be clear to them, that you are not in a position where you have to take their offer. That, don't say things like, man, I'm going to run out of money on Friday. Can I have till Thursday to think about it, right? You want to just imply that you have choices to make, and it will help you in your negotiation later. Because you can say things like, help me choose you. So I've been thinking about it, and I've got some other offers on the table, and I'm having a really hard time because your side of the scale looks so much more attractive for so many reasons, but the money is on the other side. And what I need from you is to help me make this decision easier. I have to justify this to my partner or my mother or my dog. My dad's making fun of me. Like, just make all of the excuses that you need to make. If you need to take the decision off your plate, that's fine. But make it very clear that you're just trying to level this a little bit, all right? They really don't care about giving you more money. They need you to fit into a spreadsheet. And in many cases, they don't know what the spreadsheet looks like. It is a very common scenario for salary levels to be obscured from lower level managers. So most likely the person who you're talking to about hiring doesn't really know how much you can make, right? By the time the offer comes around, it's gone through HR and they've scribbled down some notes and they've talked about your skills and this is what they're going to offer you. And I want to make a note here that it's not always necessarily when the offer actually comes that you come up with that price. Like, it's certainly reasonable to have discussions before then. And if you're not sure when the right time is, hint, it's not the first day or probably the second that you see someone. But when they call you and they say, you know, we're thinking about extending you an offer, but we don't know what your previous salary is, or those kind of things, that's a really good time to give them a target to work with. You're fine giving them a number to shoot for, right? But be ambitious. You deserve it. Aim high. Don't tell them what you're actually making right now. Tell them what you want to be making right now. So, the ask. How to ask someone for $15,000. I need to be closer to what you've offered me in $15,000, right? So I need to be closer to X plus $15,000. Let's make up a number here. Your first offer is $50,000, okay? Gosh, I really need to be closer to 65. You know, I've talked with my partner. We are on board. I really believe in New Relic as a company. I like the vision. I think the leadership is awesome. But I have a hard time making a decision that jeopardizes my family's future based solely on those factors. If you could get another 15 in there, I am positive that this would work out, right? I realize it's a big increase, right? And I'm willing to accept a third in lottery tickets. Ask for more options, so you have something to give, okay? When you come in and you are working to negotiate, like maybe you're looking for about a 10K bump. If you start with $10,000, you're going to get half of that. So start with 15 and take 5 in options. You know, we talked about how much those options were worth, and I did a little bit of math, and I'm thinking, you know, you offered me 400 and I'm thinking 600 because that would be an additional $5,000 worth of options. And then if we can get the other 10 on salary, then we've got a deal. I'm so excited. Get back to me as soon as you know, right? You're not really asking for as much as you think you're asking for if you consider the fact that your employer is paying about 25% more than your salary in other benefits and taxes, right? So if the person already didn't care so much before, now they doubly don't care because it is a relatively small bump, right? I mean, it shaves off about 10%, 20% of what you're asking for. So you're not asking for 15 grand, you're asking for a few grand less than that. It's an important thing to know. It's not going to come up, probably. I think like any reasonable employer is not going to sit down and be like, well, we expect that you're going to drink 35 sodas a month at least, and this is how much those are going to cost, so that's compensation. If you ever see soda on a compensation plan, you should walk out. So the hiring manager likely has a range for your bucket, right? When you're coming out of here, you're probably going to be in the junior developer, intern bucket, wherever you land, right? And for that bucket, they pay between this and this. And the manager may not even know what that number is. But once they go to HR and they take the offer all the way through the chain, and it takes 2 days and HR dots all of this stuff and legal looks at it, they're not going to be super psyched about changing it. They will, okay? They will change that offer for you. But it's important to let them know what your expectations are before it comes around. Okay? You're negotiating as soon as you say that first number. So, I have another offer, but to be honest, I'd really prefer to work with you. I'm just trying to justify that decision, okay? That's the overall thesis to this section of negotiation. I just want to balance the scale a little bit so I can make the easy decision and the right one for me and my family. Or my dog. Wait. They'll call you with an offer. Hang up the phone. When you've had that discussion, you don't want to be waffling with them on the phone where they can start to whittle down that number already, right? Say, listen, I really need to be about 15K more. Goodbye. And then go to sleep. And then they're in a position where they've got to speak first, right? They've got to come back to you, and they will. It will be probably a little bit longer than you would like, because it's like sleeping on a bed of nails, waiting for that offer to come back around. I promise you, it will come back. They've already invested in you, right? They're not going to give up right now. So if you're careful to point out all of the other benefits of working for the company when you have this discussion, it will definitely weigh in your favor. People work in companies they generally like in software because they have choices. So people who work at New Relic are there because they really like New Relic and they really like the work that they do there. So when you tell somebody that you think their company is awesome and that they've made a good decision, you're telling them that they are awesome. Right? That's a good thing in negotiation. They're going to come back and we're going to negotiate one more time. This time with feeling. They're going to come back and probably hit you halfway, right? Or a little bit less. They'll be like, yeah, we can get another $5,000 on there. How's that doing for you? And you say something like, you know, I'm really excited about the position. I regret that you weren't able to come through with all those extra options because I loved Lotto, but if you could get to $57,000, then we got a deal. For $57,000, I would sign an offer that you sent to me today. And I can definitely talk my partner into that. But again, there are people outside of this decision beyond me. I mean, if it were up to me, I would just do it right now. I'm so excited. New Relic's amazing. You know? But I got this other, my dog is such a stickler about salary. God, expensive food, all of it's organic. And that last discussion is going to be a little bit harder one to have. They're probably going to come back and either answer or say, no, we can't do it, or meet you somewhere in between. And always the answer is yes, because you wanted to work there anyway, right? This whole time, you've just been playing a little bit of game with them to get yourself some more money because you deserve it. But this is a problem that is a little bit skewed in the software industry. There are people who negotiate and there are people who do not negotiate. And people who do not negotiate, in general, will continue not to negotiate for their whole careers. And 20 years from now, they will be at a significant deficit. So I want you to take ownership for this early and learn. You've got to practice this like any other skill, right? It's fundamentally a sales skill. You're selling yourself for more money than they think that you're worth. Or what they're really offering you is the minimum that they think you will possibly accept. They're not offering you what they think you're worth. What they think you're worth is about what you're going to end on, I promise. So that's all of it. Congratulations, you're going to get paid to code. I assume I have time for questions?
We're at 6:36 right now. Maybe a few questions. 5 minutes.
5 minutes of questions. Does anyone have questions? Or we just move on with our lives? You're going to do some mock interviews? Yeah, what's up?
As a junior or an intern, what do you think
The question is, as a junior developer or an intern, what do I think the starting salary should be? And I think it should be $1 million. Because you're awesome. But it's a hard thing to say. In Portland, I am told that you can expect between 35 and 50. I think, honestly, that's pretty low. I think that like 45 to 60 is pretty reasonable. And they'll hit you near the bottom of that range on their first try. They'll come to you and say, hey, 45,000. It's like a lot of money, right? Way better than the grocery store job you had. And you'll be like, that's really not enough for me to feed my family. Let's go for 60 or 65 or 70. Be ambitious, you know? Worst case scenario, you're going to fall short of an imaginary goal that you just made up. Right? Any more questions? Thank you all for having me. It's a lot of fun.